Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever felt like the weight of the world was on your shoulders? Like no matter what you do, someone always has something to say, judging, criticizing, tearing you down. Let me tell you a truth that will shift everything. No one can hurt you unless you let them. The moment you stop seeking approval is the moment you start reclaiming your power. Nobody can hurt you unless you let them. That's not just a comforting phrase, it's a truth that once fully understood will change the way you see everything. You see, most of the pain we carry doesn't come from what was done to us, but from how we choose to internalize it. Someone's words, their actions, their betrayal, they sting, yes, but the lasting wound only remains when we allow it to define us. When someone insults you, dismisses you, or abandons you, the power they hold over you only exists if you open the door and invite it in. The moment you realize that their behavior reflects them, not you, is the moment you begin to reclaim your peace. People will talk, they will judge, they will misunderstand you, and often they will project their own insecurities onto you. But that doesn't mean you have to accept it. You don't have to let their negativity shape your identity. You don't have to absorb their hurtful words as truth. In fact, the most powerful thing you can do is learn to let it roll off your spirit like water off a stone. When you stop personalizing their opinions, their actions, and their judgments, you begin to take your power back. Understand this: your emotional control is your responsibility. You may not be able to stop what people say or do, but you can absolutely choose how you respond, and that response determines your strength. The world can be harsh. People will disappoint you. Some will betray you. But even then, especially then, you must remind yourself that you are the gatekeeper of your peace. You decide what enters your heart. You decide what lingers in your mind. No one else. Too often we hand over our emotional stability to others. We let their approval uplift us and their rejection destroy us. But when you allow someone else to determine your worth, you've already given away too much. Real strength lies in self-awareness, in knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what you're worth, regardless of anyone else's opinion. When you cultivate this kind of inner strength, you become untouchable. Not because you're cold or emotionless, but because you've trained yourself to rise above the noise. Being untouchable doesn't mean you don't feel pain. It means you don't live in it. It means you don't hand people the blueprint to destroy your spirit. It means you recognize the difference between someone trying to hurt you and you letting that hurt take root. When you fully grasp this, you begin to move differently. You become less reactive, more grounded. You respond with wisdom instead of emotion, and that's when your life begins to change. The real power doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from mastering yourself. And once you understand that nobody can hurt you without your permission, you become truly free, untouchable, unshakable, unbothered, and completely in control of your life. Seeking approval may feel harmless, even necessary at times. But every time you rely on someone else's validation to feel worthy, you quietly hand over a piece of your power. Slowly, piece by piece, your sense of identity starts to depend on someone else's applause, someone else's acceptance. And before you know it, your life is no longer your own. It's a performance, a carefully crafted act designed to please others, not to fulfill you. You start to question your choices, your voice, and your truth based on how others will react. You begin editing yourself, not to grow, but to fit in. This need for approval often begins early. As children, we're taught to behave in ways that win praise, affection, and attention. But as we grow, if we don't become aware of it, this conditioning becomes a trap. We start making decisions not from a place of alignment, but from a place of fear. Fear of being disliked, judged, or rejected. We overextend ourselves, over-apologize, and stay silent when we should speak. We shrink so others can feel comfortable, and all the while, our true self gets buried under layers of other people's expectations. When you seek approval, you unconsciously give others authority over your life. Their opinions start to matter more than your own. You begin to second-guess your instincts, your goals, your dreams. You chase affirmation, and in doing so, you abandon authenticity. You become a version of yourself that's easier to accept, easier to like, but far from real. And that false version may gain you likes, compliments, or temporary praise, but it will never give you the peace that comes from being fully, unapologetically you. Living for approval is exhausting. It's a never-ending cycle. Because no matter how much praise you receive, it's never enough to fill the void created by ignoring your own voice. People are fickle. What they admire today, they may criticize tomorrow. Tying your worth to their shifting opinions is like building a house on sand. It's unstable, unsustainable, and it leaves you emotionally fragile, constantly waiting for someone else to tell you you're good enough. But here's the truth. You don't need anyone's permission to be who you are. You don't need a round of applause to validate your existence. Your worth isn't up for debate. The moment you stop seeking approval is the moment you reclaim your voice. You begin to make choices based on your truth, not based on how others might react. You start living in alignment, not performance. You stop begging for acceptance and start demanding respect from yourself first. True power comes from within. It's quiet, firm, and unshakable. It comes from knowing who you are and refusing to trade your authenticity for acceptance. When you stop chasing approval, you create space for the right people, those who see and value the real you, to enter your life. And more importantly, you begin to recognize and honor your own voice above all others. That's where freedom lives. You lose yourself trying to please everyone. It doesn't happen all at once. It's a slow erosion, a quiet compromise. One small choice here, one silenced opinion there. You change how you speak, how you dress, what you believe, just to avoid conflict, just to be accepted. You laugh when something isn't funny. You agree when you want to disagree. You show up when your soul is tired simply because you're afraid of disappointing someone. And little by little, the person in the mirror becomes a stranger. People-pleasing is often rooted in good intentions. We want to be liked, we want to maintain peace, we want to be seen as kind, agreeable, valuable. But when the need to be accepted overrides our own authenticity, we trade truth for approval. And in that trade, we pay with our identity. We become experts at adapting, at being who people want us to be, rather than who we truly are. We end up performing for an audience that doesn't even know the real us exists. You trying to please everyone is a game you can't win, because no matter how much you give, it's never enough. Expectations grow, demands multiply, and eventually resentment builds, not just toward others, but toward yourself. Because deep down, you know you've betrayed your own truth. You've suppressed your voice so many times that it starts to disappear. Your passions fade, your opinions dull, your confidence weakens. You begin to live a life that looks good on the outside, but feels hollow on the inside. And the tragedy is, most people won't even notice the pieces of yourself you've sacrificed to make them comfortable. They'll take what you give without understanding what it cost you, because when you constantly mold yourself to please others, you teach them that your needs don't matter, that your boundaries are optional, that your silence is agreement. But it's not. It's suppression. And it chips away at your soul. Authenticity is not about being perfect, it's about being real. And you can't be real if you're constantly editing yourself for acceptance. The truth is, not everyone will like you. And that's okay. You're not meant to be liked by everyone. You're meant to be respected by those who see the real you and love you for it. When you finally stop trying to please everyone, you begin to rediscover yourself. You start to remember what you like, what you believe, what you want. You start making choices that align with your values, not other people's preferences. The people who truly matter will never require you to shrink, bend, or hide who you are just to be accepted. They'll honor your truth, not expect you to abandon it. So if pleasing everyone means losing yourself, it's not worth it. Because the world doesn't need another version of who you think you should be. It needs the real you, bold and unfiltered. You don't have to twist yourself into something you're not just to be loved. But the right people will love you because of who you are, not despite it. Rejection stings. It hits a nerve that runs deep. The fear of not being good enough, the fear of being unwanted, unseen, or dismissed. And when that fear takes root, it begins to control your actions. You start avoiding risks, watering yourself down, and saying yes when you want to say no, all to avoid the possibility of being rejected. But here's what most people forget. Rejection doesn't define your worth. It simply reveals misalignment, a difference in values, needs, or timing. It doesn't mean you're not enough. It means the fit wasn't right. And that's not a reflection of your value. It's a redirection to something better suited for you. When you live in fear of rejection, you place your self-worth in someone else's hands. You allow their opinion to become a mirror for how you see yourself. And that's dangerous, because most rejection isn't even about you. It's about someone else's preferences, perspective, or limitations. But if you internalize it, you start shrinking to avoid feeling that pain again. You silence your truth, compromise your dreams, and choose comfort over courage. You begin to live a filtered version of your life, constantly seeking to be accepted rather than choosing to be authentic. The truth is, rejection is not an ending, it's information. It's feedback from the universe that says, this isn't your path, keep going. But instead of seeing it as guidance, most people see it as failure. They think rejection means they're broken, unworthy, or lacking. That belief becomes a prison. It traps you in a life of people-pleasing, where you mold yourself to fit what others want, just so you don't have to feel unwanted. But that's a trap, because even when you win someone's approval, it still doesn't feel right, because it came at the cost of your authenticity. Rejection isn't personal, it's a part of life. Even the most loved, successful, and admired people in the world have faced rejection, in relationships, careers, friendships, and dreams. What sets them apart isn't that they avoided it, it's that they refused to let it define them. They saw rejection not as a wall, but as a door swinging shut to guide them towards something greater. And that's how you need to see it, not as a judgment, but as redirection, not as punishment, but as protection. You were not put on this earth to be universally accepted. You were put here to live in alignment with who you are. That means not everyone will understand you, not everyone will stay. And that's okay. Because the more you accept rejection as part of your growth, the less power it holds over you. You become free, free to speak your truth, free to stand in your values, free to pursue the path that's meant for you, without the need for constant validation. You don't need everyone to choose you, you only need to choose yourself. Rejection doesn't define you, it refines you. And the moment you stop fearing it, you begin to rise above it. You stop seeing rejection as loss and start seeing it as liberation. Your worth comes from within, not from how you look, what you own, or how others see you. It's not tied to popularity, social status, or accomplishments. It doesn't fluctuate with praise or criticism. True worth is quiet, unshakable, and deeply rooted in self-awareness. It lives in how you treat yourself when no one's watching. It lives in the boundaries you set, the peace you protect, and the truth you refuse to abandon, even when it costs you approval. We live in a world that constantly tries to measure worth externally. You're told your value lies in your appearance, your bank balance, your job title, or how many people approve of you. But the moment you buy into that lie, you become a prisoner to the outside world. You begin to chase validation instead of peace. You begin to shape your identity based on how others respond to you. And the more you look outside for your worth, the more lost you become inside. Worth isn't about being the best. It's about being yourself, fully, unapologetically, and without needing to prove anything. When you realize that your value doesn't come from pleasing people, performing for applause, or fitting into a mold, you become powerful. Because no one can take away what they didn't give you. When your worth is built on internal truth, external noise can't shake it. Opinions can't break it. Rejection can't diminish it. Self-worth is born in moments when you choose yourself. When you say no, because you honor your peace. When you speak your truth, even when your voice trembles. When you walk away from things that don't serve you, even if it leaves you alone for a while. These small choices reinforce something sacred. You are enough as you are. You don't need to earn your worth through achievements or sacrifice your truth to be accepted. You become untouchable when your worth is anchored within. That doesn't mean arrogance, it means quiet confidence. It means knowing who you are, what you bring, and what you will no longer tolerate. It means understanding that being kind doesn't mean being walked on, and being humble doesn't mean shrinking to make others comfortable. It means respecting your own time, energy, and heart, enough to stop begging for things that were never meant for you. Your uniqueness is not a flaw, it's your power. What makes you different is what makes you irreplaceable. Stop comparing your journey to someone else's highlight reel. Stop waiting for someone to validate what you already know deep down. The world may not always reflect your worth back to you, but that doesn't make it any less real. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is look in the mirror and remind yourself, I am worthy. Not because of what I've done or how I'm seen, but because I exist. Let your worth come from within, and you'll never need to chase it again. If fear is a lie, it disguises itself as caution, as logic, as self-protection. But underneath it all, it's just noise. It's the voice in your head whispering, what if you fail? What if they laugh? What if you're not enough? And the more you listen, the more you shrink. The more you obey, the more power you hand over to something that isn't even real. Because fear doesn't come from truth, it comes from imagination. It feeds off worst-case scenarios, of illusions of danger that haven't even happened yet. Most of what you fear isn't actually happening, it's only living in your mind. Fear paints vivid pictures of disaster, of rejection, of judgment, convincing you that risk equals ruin, and so you hold back. You delay the dream, you silence your voice, you settle for comfort over growth. Not because you can't, but because fear told you not to try. It tricks you into believing that safety is in staying small, but staying small doesn't keep you safe, it keeps you stuck. It keeps you distant from your potential, it keeps you living a fraction of the life you're capable of. But fear only holds power when you believe it. The moment you expose it, the moment you look it in the eye and say, I see you for what you are, it starts to lose its grip. Because when you break it down, fear is often nothing more than a question with no answer, a shadow with no substance. You realize that the pain of never trying is far worse than the pain of falling. You realize that rejection won't break you, that failure won't define you, and that discomfort is temporary, but regret lasts forever. Real growth begins when you act in spite of fear, not after fear is gone, but while it's still there, whispering, doubting, trying to hold you back. You take a step anyway, you speak anyway, you show up anyway. And every time you do, you prove to yourself that fear is not the truth, courage is. That your power doesn't come from avoiding fear, but from walking through it. You stop giving fear the final say. You stop letting it decide your worth, your future, your voice. Fear will always knock, but you don't have to answer. You don't have to make decisions based on fear's warnings. You can acknowledge it, feel it, and still move forward. Because your purpose is bigger than your fear. Your calling is louder than your doubt. And your strength is deeper than your anxiety. You were not born to live a life ruled by fear. You were born to live boldly, honestly, and freely. So the next time fear tries to lie to you, remind yourself, fear is not a fact, it's a feeling. And you are not here to serve it, you are here to rise above it. Everything changes when you remember where your power truly lies, within. No one can define your worth unless you let them. No one can make you feel small unless you believe their voice over your own. Approval, validation, and acceptance are fleeting when they come from outside sources. But the moment you reclaim your voice, your choices, and your truth, you stop living for others and start living for yourself. You don't need permission to be who you are. You don't need to shrink for others to feel comfortable. You don't need to silence your light to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. And you certainly don't need fear to make your decisions. Fear is loud, but it's not the truth. The truth is, your authenticity is your power. Your boundaries are your protection. Your self-respect is your foundation. You were never meant to live at the mercy of others' opinions. You were meant to rise, to grow, to speak, to walk boldly in your purpose. Not because the world agrees, but because your soul knows. The most powerful version of you isn't the one who's liked by everyone, It's the one who's honest with themselves. So stop seeking approval, stop explaining yourself, stop fearing rejection. Reclaim your peace, reclaim your voice, reclaim your worth. Because the moment you do, nothing and no one can take it from you again. Your next level begins the moment you decide to stop doubting your own power.